Guys, this is my official review of the Blazar REMUS. These are the first affordable, compact, full-frame 1.5x Anamorphics that actually have that anamorphic look. I know that's debatable. So throughout this video, we're gonna go over sharpness, character. We're gonna throw it on the dual lens projector. This is the most scientific way that we could actually see what these lenses are doing. Towards the end, we'll do the projector segment, and at the very end, I'm gonna show you guys all my editing tricks on how you can sharpen up these lenses, tricks to fix distortion if you want to do that.
A good shepherd get life to the sheep, leash nice, but nah, he ain't nice underneath. Got a price on the leash, I don't trust when he speak. He sound a real spite for the meat. Boy, I bleed with the best, got a peep with an eagle and downs. I done feed with a flesh, trying to smeag with a ring. She believe that I'm blessed, got a speed to the left. All of my clothes, I be eager to mesh. Oh no, might put her on a roster. I bet she gon' dread it, take all my betters, run through it like betters. Might make her a tenant, the way that she moving it, highly attentive.
All right, guys, we're out here in Arizona. What's more perfect than to test lens sharpness on a cactus? I will say the 45mm is going to be your sharpest lens out of this kit. So if you're anyone that's shooting on like a Komodo or Super 35 sensor, the 45mm, that's probably going to be your go-to. I would say just if you're going to buy one lens and you're on Super 35, just buy that. But if you're on full frame, sometimes the 45mm feels a tiny bit too wide and the 65mm fits a little bit better. If you're on full frame, I would say if you're only thinking about getting one, I would try to get two, honestly. So pretty much all the lenses, 45 wide open, you're gonna have chromatic aberrations, a little bit of ghosting, but once you close down to T2.4, it cleans up. On the 65mm, once you close down to T2.8, it cleans up. On the 65mm, it's a similar story, but between T2.4 and T2.8, it looks similar to the 45. The 100mm, a lot of people are like, oh, it's super soft. The 100mm has a crap ton of bokeh in it at T2.8. It's too much bokeh for my taste. It's 100mm plus 1.5x anamorphic waterfall bokeh. It's too much. So I like going to T4 to T5.6 on that lens. And once you go to there, it cleans up really well. So you guys will see all that here right now. I don't think people realize that most anamorphics don't go to T2. Most of them go to like T8, if even. More expensive anamorphics and the vintage anamorphics, they don't clear up to like T4. So the fact that Blazar is giving us an option to go to T2, that is up to you if you want to soften up the image to get faster light. Let me show you guys here though real quick. This is now wide open at T2. You can't see anything that's behind me. There's no story here. You're missing the whole point. We have a beautiful landscape. It's okay to close down. We're now at T8. The beautiful thing about anamorphic is we're still getting some separation and texture in the background because, again, there's still a de-stretch happening there. That's one thing I love about anamorphics is you can close them down. So while a spherical lens might look flat, an anamorphic's still going to have some slight separation. It's still going to have some texture to the image. I love texture. I live for texture. And to me, all the stories I want to tell require texture. That's why I love anamorphic. You guys, the other reason I love the REMUS so much is because of how freaking compact they are. This is the 65mm. This is my cup of coffee. This is wild. Not only that, this is the 100mm just chilling, you know, on my dash. You know, obviously they're gonna be great for gimbal work, but where I find this is more important is, you know, when you're doing stuff like this. I'm by myself. I have a fully built out rig, but it's as compact as possible. And I'm able just to fly these things around, throw them in my bag, just do whatever I need to do with them. And they're smaller than some even like autofocus zooms from, you know, all the other brands. So you could just imagine not having to sling around giant lenses all over the place. If you're a traveling filmmaker and you want to shoot an anamorphic, again, we have the option to go to T2 if you're losing light and you're gonna, you know, lose some sharpness and details, but you're gonna be able to get an exposure versus, you know, when you're in the middle of the day, you close down to T2.8 and they're gonna look like, you know, lenses that are a lot more expensive than this. These are probably the best like run and gun anamorphics that you can get right now. Mercury's are probably right next to that, but again, the price point's totally different. And yeah, after you start closing these down, again, I'm at 5.6 on there. This shot's gonna look amazing on there. Next, let's talk about focus breathing. I know a lot of people are just like, oh, focus breathing is like the devil, blah, blah, blah. Go watch any of your favorite director or film that was shot on vintage Panavision C-series lenses. You're going to see, again, some of your favorite films, some of the most iconic films have crazy focus breathing. I don't mind it when I'm shooting anamorphic. If I don't want focus breathing, I'm most likely going to shoot spherical. In my eyes, I don't think regular people notice focus breathing. I don't think regular people really care. I think it's more us. Obviously, we have the creative license to, do whatever we want and have any opinion that we want as creatives. But again, for me, I really don't mind focus breathing. Now let's just look at the focus breathing. We're on the 45 millimeter right now. Pay attention to the cactus out over there as I focus out. So let's just run it right here. And you can see as I focus out, the edges, they almost, the edges want to push out a little bit. I think it's Panavision anamorphics to where the focus breathing is only vertical. And for some reason, it's very pleasing to the eye. It's hard to explain. It might be Cook anamorphics. I'm not sure. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, and I'm sure you guys will. Obviously here, we're getting more of that horizontal type shift. Also guys, excuse the interruption. I just want to show you my new film emulation LUTs. These are my first emulation LUTs I've been able to make, and I named the LUTs Roadrunner. I just want to share them with you guys real quick. This is Bones. This basically strips away all the dynamic range and just gives you all the color, juice, and everything out of it. This is Nest. This just starts baking in some of the contrast. This is half speed. You can see the jumps between the LUTs are very subtle. Full speed, this really just, it pushes the film curve all the way up and it kind of gives you that matte shadow look. And then off the record, takes it up just one more little bit of a notch. And just to show you guys what these LUTs involve, this is the full-on node tree here. It's a big technical, but pretty much everything that I've released the past few months is color graded with this. Really excited about it. And now I just slap on the LUT here and you see it gets the look that I love. So link down in the description if you're interested in checking these out. Now, if you're someone who, wants to lean on a cleaner side of the anamorphic, and if you're shooting Super 35, you're going to be even more happier with these lenses. Let me show you. So you can see as I step back and forth here, the distortion on the edges there, you can see it gets kind of wonky. Again, personally, I don't mind that, but if I was shooting narrative and I don't want the audience to be distracted by something like that, I think that's a little bit more distracting. Then obviously you got to frame accordingly. But if you're going to shoot on Super 35, let's just use the Sony FX3 clear image zoom. That's 1.5x crop there. You can see when I step out, we lose a lot of that funky edge distortion. So if you're someone that's shooting on the Red Komodo X, on the Sony FX30, or just any Super 35 camera, you're gonna get even cleaner results out of these lenses. And I haven't really seen anybody talk about that. Obviously, Blazar could have just made these to be Super 35 lenses, and no one would be complaining like, oh, the edges are crazy, it's swimming. The price point on these, like anybody that's complaining, there's other options out there, go buy the other options. But once you go look at the other options, you're like, oh, they look kind of flat. Oh, those actually don't look too much like anamorphic. Oh, they're only Super 35. Oh, you can't use rear V&Ds on them. Oh, they only go to like T28 or T29 or whatever. Anybody that complains about these lenses, you're being silly. Again, for the price point, we're getting barrel distortion. We're getting some pretty natural looking flares. I wouldn't mind if, if they put a little bit more of, those soap bubble and third flares into there. You're getting full frame coverage. You're getting sharpness past T28. They're super tiny. They're super compact. They're super light. They're actually built very well. Anybody who saw the Bronco Spec commercial that we shot and all the dust, those lenses actually had 0 dust in them, which I was shocked because at that price point, I was like, oh, these lenses are gonna be ruined. No, there's almost 0 dust in there, and I don't know how that happens. Obviously, when you're shooting wide open, you're gonna get a little bit more of the chromatic aberration, some ghosting on there. But again, they could just tap these lenses out at T28 and not give you the option to open up wider. And then there would be almost 0 complaints on, them not being sharp enough. So you guys just need to realize the price point on these lenses, they're amazing. Thank you, Blazar, for finally giving filmmakers an affordable option. So anybody who wants to get into anamorphics, they can now get into anamorphics. Guys, look at this light. If you guys didn't know, I'm moving to Arizona in a couple of months, and I'm really excited. Stay tuned for what I have planned. All right, guys, also Blazar is sponsoring this video. I'm just going to be looking at these and just translating what is, what's on the projector and the characteristics and all that. So have fun in the comments. Guys, let's start off with distortion here. On the projector, everything's backwards basically. So right now, this looks like we have pin cushion distortion, but that's just the physics of how, light's being tossed through the projector. In reality, this is showing how much barrel distortion we have. So you could see on a regular spherical, like a perfect spherical lens, this line would be straight up here. You can see on here, we have a pretty strong curve here. That is the distortion that the lens has. Personally, for me, I love heavy distortion on anamorphics. If I didn't want that, I just would shoot spherical and put black bars on there, like I've been saying multiple times in this video. That's our distortion there. We're on the 45mm right now. We're at T2. We're at minimum focus here. Next, let's go over chromatic aberrations. In the center here, there's very minimum chromatic aberrations. But you can see if I throw that back focus out, those chromatic aberrations get worse. This is why shimming all of your lenses, all of your adapters, no matter what the lens is important. Because if that back focus isn't perfect, even your chromatic aberration could be worse. Let's go off to the edges here. So you can see in the center, the chromatic aberration is pretty clean. There is some on there and they don't clean up till we get to around, we're between T4 and T5/6 and the chromatic aberrations look pretty clean there. But obviously when you shoot wide open, you know, we're gonna get more chromatic aberrations. You can see the magenta aberrations right there. If we throw the focus out, you can see we get magenta, and then the other direction we'll get more of a blue type aberration right there. You can see in the center here, we're looking pretty clean. Super 16, it's still pretty clean. At micro 4/3, you see the chromatic aberrations really start coming out. At super 35, this is where these lenses start kind of falling off. So you can see we're critical focus in the center here, but on the edges, they start falling off a little bit. On a spherical perfect lens, you see this line right here, how there's some chromatic aberrations, and as we go up, they start feathering out. If we close this down, obviously those lines clean up a little bit, but wide open at T2, you know, we're getting a lot of that fall off there. You can see on the Alexa 35, Super 35, we have a lot of fall off. And then this is full frame up here. At T2 wide open, we could barely see any details up here. So this is on the 45. On the 65, the edges clean up. The 100mm, the edges clean up even more. If you're gonna be using these lenses on a Super 35 camera, you're gonna get, you know, the cleanest results. If you're someone that wants cleaner, you're gonna get cleaner results. But if you're someone that loves all of those artifacts, you can also call artifacts character, you're gonna love these. If you guys go watch some of your favorite movies, whether it's like La La Land or the latest Batman, those have crazy, crazy, crazy character. Batman has crazy astigmatism running throughout the whole edges of the frame. It has that blurry, mushy look. Some of the people that complain about lenses not being clinical and perfect are also the same people that are posting like the Batman movie, saying how much they love it. It makes no sense. There's an issue with marketing where throughout the film days and older cameras, we wanted cleaner lenses, but now our cameras are perfect. The sensors are too clean. Even in Hollywood, you're starting to see more character and more vintage lenses being used now because they want to dirty it up a little bit. They want to go back to the, you know, those filmic days. You guys got to really start thinking for yourselves, you know, cut out the marketing. If you like the way a lens looks, use it because you like it. Don't use it just because like someone's like, oh, this is clean or this isn't clean. Form your own opinions. You're an artist. It's okay to have your own opinions. You don't have to defend yourself or your decisions. Little rant there. You guys are used to it now. Before we get into the whole shimming thing and if these are perfect out of the factory, let's throw on the 65 and the 100mm. Let's do a real brief overview on the distortion because as you guys can tell, this would take forever. Oh, is that your?
Yeah, I was just putting my point out.
All right, guys. So now we're on the 100mm. Once again, you're going to start seeing that pattern again. The big difference is this lens only opens up to T2.8. If they did T2 on here, you guys would be complaining up the yazoo. So I think that's a word. So we're at T2.8 right here. You can see once again, we have that ghosting, but it's even a little bit more prevalent. So the ghosting at T2.8 and the 100mm looks very similar to the ghosting at T2 on the 65mm. I'm going to close this down till it cleans up right there. So we are right before the T4. I just put the T4. At T4, this looks really freaking good, actually. This actually looks really sharp. But let's get in the edges here. You can see our center is critical right here at T4. Micro 4/3 is pretty clean. Super 35 has some really good subtle character. And then once we get into the full frame up here, pretty good. This is the best coverage that we're getting on the lenses so far. And you can see the distortion on here is actually pretty clean. These lines are almost straight. So the 100mm, if you're going to be putting any faces on the edges or any narrative type stuff, you might love the way that this lens looks for that. So that concludes all of our character stuff. Now let's get in and talk about if these are shimmed correctly. All the testing that I've done so far from the factory, these were usable. Now, there's a big difference between usable and perfect. For the 45mm, I had to add, I think, a 0.02 shim. That's it. That's like barely anything. For the 65 millimeter, I think I had to add a 0.06, and the 100 millimeter, I think I had to add a 0.08. Those could be all wrong. My point is, these are actually pretty close to, you know, clean and perfect from the factory. But I would say if you're going to shoot anything important with these, I would maybe go get them shimmed properly. Not only just these, all of your cinema lenses, all your spherical lenses, all your cinema zoom lenses, you need to have all of them shimmed correctly, because I promise you they're not going to be perfect, especially from the factory, unless you're paying big money, because that's the only time where you're buying a lens and you're getting what you pay for. Definitely using these versus the pre-production units we had. Everybody saw it. Luis was there. All them were like, oh, these look way cleaner. So again, the whole narrative of like, you know, they're blah, blah, blah. Just stop, please. It should have never been a narrative, honestly. Even though I have this, I still want to take these in because I have zero clue if I'm actually doing this accurately. Because you have to make sure all your adjustments and your measuring and yada, yada, yada is all perfect. And I just don't trust myself. So yeah. All right, guys, now we're going to go over how I sharpen these lenses in post and how I fix the distortion if you need to do that. So let's start off with sharpness because it's going to be pretty quick. So this is the 45 millimeter and we're wide open at T2.2. I'm just going to go on my sharpening settings down here. I'm going to go to sharpening right here. I'm just going to 0.47 is where I start off at. But if I really need to push it, you know, you can go up a little bit more. You can see this is with it off, and then this is with it on. You can see how much it cleans it up if you need to clean it up. So I kind of like distortion, especially if I'm having to like do a wide shot. It adds a little bit of character. But say if you're framing your subject in the corner and you don't want to see any of that funkiness on there, this is the fix. I'm going to turn it on. There you go. I'm just going to type in lens. And you see we'll get lens distortion right here. I'm just going to add that on. And this is the default settings it gives you. Obviously, that's not what we want. I'm just going to click in 0.2. There you go. That's literally all I do. You can see how the cactus looks curved right here. And when I turn it on, you know, it pretty much straightens out. So you can see when the Bronco enters the frame, there's almost like a warping effect going on in the corner up here. And you can see as the N exits out, it almost looks like it's twerking or something. So simply just by turning on the lens distortion, you can see now when it enters the frame, it's clean and clear and it looks straight and just normal. So that's pretty much it, guys. If you guys have any questions or anything else you want to know about these lenses, just put them down in the comments and I'll try my best to keep up and comment and reply to everybody. Peace.